If your telehealth brand is scaling on ads, but email and SMS marketing are making less than 25 to 40% of your total revenue, then this video is for you. I'm Verneri, the founder of GrowTrigger. We've built and run the Lifecycle marketing engine for 50 plus telehealth and e-commerce brands and have generated over $60 million in email and SMS revenue doing it. And based on my experience, here's what almost every single telehealth operator gets wrong. They think they have an acquisition problem, while in reality, they have a retention problem disguised as one. The biggest revenue leak in your business is not the patients you haven't acquired yet. It's the ones you already paid for and are quietly losing at months 2, 3, and 6. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down the exact 3-step system we use to take email and SMS from 5 to 10% of a telehealth brand's revenue to 25 to 40% in just 90 days. This system is built specifically for telehealth, not copy-pasted from e-commerce. So you can steal the playbook, you can build it for yourself, or if it makes sense to run it together, I'm going to show you exactly how in the end. Now, let's get into step number 1. So again, how do we help telehealth brands take email and SMS revenue from 5 to 10% to 25 to 40% of total sales? And before I even go into this, you'll have access to all of this because you're watching this video, you'll have access to the mirror board, but I have here a lot of our case studies. There's screenshots about the dozens of telehealth case studies and the results we've achieved for our clients, and also for our e-commerce brands outside telehealth. You can find the full case study folder with the full breakdowns in the drive link here, so you can go take a look at these on your own, so you understand we're not just some bullshitters bullshitting you or inventing these kind of systems or strategies. Now, let's go actually into the step-by-step system. So how do we use our 3-step lifecycle marketing system to generate these type of results for you and your brand? Step number 1 in our system is the retention marketing audit. And why is this such an important part of the whole system? Well, obviously every single telehealth brand is different. We want to actually hop on a call with you, and you're going on a call with me and our fulfillment lead, and we're mapping out your specific situation, your numbers, your system, what have you done up to now, what are your challenges, what are your goals, etc. And in this audit, we find the 3 to 5 gaps that 90% plus of telehealth brands are facing. And these are the high level, high impact things that we find that could really move the needle for you fast. So as an example, is your questionnaire abandonment recovery rate below 10%? If it is, we can do something for it, because on average 40 to 60% of patients don't finish the questionnaire without the bump email flow, meaning you have a giant leak in your system. And actually the top brands in the industry are getting more than 30% of their total sales from recovered partials. So if you don't have this system in place, you're basically missing 1/3 of potential sales you could be getting as a business, which is huge. Then is your open rate above 40 or above, or 40% or above? If your emails don't land in the inbox, it doesn't really matter. Whatever else you do, it doesn't matter, because people are just getting them into spam and they're not seeing the emails. So we're going to be helping you with the deliverability and technical side as well to make sure that you have the foundations right. Do you have email and SMS collection for lower intent leads? If you don't collect email addresses from site visitors who are not ready to fill the intake yet, you're basically losing out on tens of thousands of potential buyers. You already paid for these people to come to your website, browse your site. They're just not high intent yet to fill the quiz, and thus you're just letting them go, and you already paid for them, so basically you're throwing money down the drain. So you don't want this. You want to have some kind of recovery system to get those leads to also give their email to you. Is your average patient retention 2 months or 5 months, as an example? Most brands are putting all of their focus on cutting the customer acquisition cost, while the easiest fix to increase the LTV to CAC would actually be focusing on the LTV part of it. Taking your monthly retention from, let's say, 2 months to 5 months is gonna 2.5x your revenue per patient. Is 25 to 40% of your revenue coming from email? So with a properly built setup, with all of these pieces and all of the other big pieces of the puzzle are properly set up, you can reach this kind of numbers within 3 to 6 months of full focus on the lifecycle marketing. Now, after we actually finish the audit, then we go into creating a step-by-step strategy based on the findings from the audit. And this is the strategy that focuses on fixing and implementing the highest leverage strategies and tactics to improve your LTV to CAC. So for example, these kind of 3 to 5 things. And obviously there's more, but that's the starting point. Which brings us to the next step. Step number 2 is the implementation. So what does the implementation actually contain? What do we actually do when we work together with you? Obviously there's the email content and design. So this is something that we do from start to finish. We write the emails, we design the emails, everything is done in-house by us. The copy, the layout, the mobile optimization, the brand consistency, visual system, design system, nothing is templated, nothing is generic, everything is customized for you. So here you can see some examples from our clients, different types of designs, copywriting principles depending on the brand and the guidelines and the tone of that specific brand. Now, we also build in customer IO. We don't build in Klaviyo unless we are working with an e-commerce brand who is on Klaviyo. And this is one of the big places where we differentiate from other email marketing agencies, because most retention agencies only work in softwares like Klaviyo, but Klaviyo is not compliant with telehealth. It's not HIPAA compliant. So we have built our special expertise expertise on platforms that are, such as Customer.io as an example. And after working with 20 plus telehealth brands, we are experts in building Customer.io accounts, among other telehealth compliant platforms. And this is important since Customer.io often requires custom coded solutions for each specific client to implement the strategies needed for a telehealth brand to succeed. So all integrations from the patient backend into the actual ESP, Customer.io is the place to do that for most of our clients, and we have high, long-standing experience with this kind of setup, so we know how to do it. Now, once we have your account ready, we start setting up your email automations and the flows, the sequences. And this is really where the magic happens, because we can actually start leveraging our expertise as a telehealth first lifecycle marketing agency. You cannot just throw email marketing principles from e-commerce, traditional D2C to telehealth and expect those to perform, because the funnel is fundamentally different. And this is why there's specific flows, specific sequences that you need to build as a telehealth brand to actually succeed with your lifecycle marketing and bring it to the numbers that we are talking about here. What are these flows? There's pre-purchase onboarding, which is basically welcome flow. This is the flow that warms up the new subscribers and walks them from the sign up to the health intake to eventually the first purchase. Our clients convert 10 to 20% of welcome subscribers into paying patients. Then most brands are obviously completely missing out on this flow in telehealth. Most brands don't have any kind of extended pop-ups on their site. The only way they're collecting leads is from the questionnaire, and they're completely missing out on this 10 to 20% of potential customers. Now, questionnaire abandonment flow, arguably the most important sales generating flow in telehealth. This catches patients who started the intake but didn't finish it, and the best brands, like I said, are recovering up to 30% of their total conversions from here. We have a 6 to 8 email plus a couple of SMS touchpoints strategy here that we've tested across our clients, and I believe we found like the most effective questionnaire abandonment flow structure in the industry as far as we're aware, because we don't really find a lot of competition that has the special expertise on this area. Then there's patient onboarding. This is the single most important flow in the entire patient lifecycle for retention specifically. The first 30 to 90 days post-purchase decide adherence, refunds, and LTV, and all this kind of stuff. So what does this flow do? We are educating the patient on the brand, treatment, the dosing, the side effects, or the milestones that are coming, and what to expect at each stage, because the expectation setting part is the most important part in retention marketing. Patient who understands that treatment sticks, but if they don't understand it, if they have any kind of concerns that are not addressed, they're gonna stop, they're gonna cancel, they're gonna refund, and they're gonna go away. So this flow is built around education and provider voice content, not sale after sale promo in the inbox. And this is what separates you from brands using generic e-commerce templates, and it's where 30 to 50% LTV lift actually gets unlocked. Normal e-commerce brands just doing like these 2-3 email post-purchase flows, it doesn't work in telehealth. It's not nearly enough. You need to be really specific, because we're talking about prescription medication that people are taking. Then there's cross-sell and upsell flows as an example. This is the cheapest revenue in your business, because you've already paid to acquire these patients, and they trust you, and they're warm to a relevant next offer, which could be bundle, a plan upgrade to multi-month plan, or a complementary treatment. These should obviously be not salesy. These should be focused on the actual value they're getting from them. So they should be timed around the treatment milestones, the refill cycles, and adherence signals, so the offer actually feels useful, not just something like, buy this, buy that. It doesn't work. You cannot just push prescription medication to somebody. There actually needs to be a reason for it. So for example, a GLP patient might be low on energy, so you can cross-sell NAD or MIC-B12 for them or something like this. And done right, these can bring 10 to 25% true revenue per patient into your business, which is obviously huge, because again, the cost to acquire this revenue is pretty much free if you're doing it with email and SMS. It doesn't cost the same as like ads, because you need to put more money into the ad spend. In here you don't. Then there's cancellation and win back flows, which recovers the patients who've churned or are about to. And done well, this also can win back 5 to 10% off churners and add months of recovered LTV per save. More importantly than that, even, this flow is something where you can actually dive deep into getting feedback from these customers, these patients, to understand why are they churning in the first place. And then you can find insights on like, okay, they didn't understand this part of the treatment, so now you can actually go to the front and you can start fixing your funnel to avoid those people from churning in the future. So that's even more important long term than the actual recovered ones that you're able to recover from here. And those are obviously not all. Those are just some examples of the most important flows. On average, we build around 6 to 10 flows on total, and this becomes about 50 to 100 emails. And obviously this number multiplies with the number of treatments your brand offers. So if we build this many flows and this many emails for GLP-1 brand, if they have a longevity product or longevity treatment, we're pretty much going to be building all of these same flows and same emails for the other treatment category as well. And so there's a lot of these flows. And regarding the campaigns, that's the next step in the whole implementation system. The automations are the big part at the start, and then campaigns are pretty much the broadcast newsletters that we're sending on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, at least 2 to 4 times a week is what I recommend. And these are the ones that you don't automate. Like I said, you need to be creating these. You need to have somebody like us actually pushing out this content, building this content, shipping it, designing, copywriting, strategizing, analyzing, and so on a monthly, on a weekly basis constantly. So this is a process you have to keep doing on an ongoing basis. And usually we find the campaigns bringing around at least 25 to 40% of the total revenue from of the telehealth brands, email and SMS SMS marketing system. And then the flows, the automations that I went through previously are what brings the rest. And there's different campaign types. There's prospect nurture campaigns, there's treatment education for active patients, there's social proof and transformational stories, there's cross-sell and upsell campaigns, there's seasonal campaigns for specific events around the year, there's re-engagement nudges and more. It's not just sending something random. That's never a good idea. It's actually strategic segmented communication that reaches across the whole patient life cycle. And here's just a placeholder calendar, something that it could contain as an example. Then regarding the segmentation, this is something that most brands completely miss, and a lot of the results come from just getting this part right. We split the list from day one, we split the CRM from day one, and never blast everyone the same exact message. So the 5 most important different categories, different segments of your audience are prospects, so those who have never bought before, active patients, so those who are on a subscription plan, at-risk patients, so maybe they have paused the treatment or something, or otherwise we can identify them as being at risk, then lapsed, who have obviously already lapsed or cancelled, and then VIP, so those who have been on the treatment for a long time, or maybe they have multiple treatments active at the same time, who are your most loyal customers and patients. Then obviously we also segment by the treatment, and here's an example on how the top brands do it. So from HIMSS, hair loss category, there's an ad, visible results in just 3 months, then there's the quiz specifically for the hair loss, and then there's the email content specifically for the hair loss. Obviously weight loss, same thing, ad, quiz, email, again really specific for that specific treatment category. Then there's ED, again ad, quiz, email, and then there's low testosterone, ad, quiz, and email, and so on and so forth. So this is how we also segment, and this is super important because the categories are so fundamentally different that you cannot send the same content that would actually cater for all of these categories. You need to spend time creating specific content for this and this and this and this all separately. Then going into the SMS marketing. At best, SMS drives up to 20% of total lifecycle revenue. So email drives usually like the 90% to 80%, and then SMS drives the rest of it. And SMS is usually used mainly for urgency and announcements. So for example, abandoned questionnaire nudges, shipping updates, win-back triggers, maybe there's like a new treatment launch or something. Those are the kind of things that you usually use SMS to communicate. And there's pretty much 2 high-level ways to do SMS. There's the traditional one-way SMS, which is just transactional. You send something, you ask them to click it, and that's like the main CTA of the SMS, to get them to click it. So here's an example from questionnaire abandonment. You're almost finished with your assessment, finish it here, and then there's the link to the questionnaire, and then you can have like a follow-up later. The second way is conversational SMS, which is much more rare, but this usually converts 2 to 3x higher than transactional at least, especially when it comes to these parts of the funnel like questionnaire abandonment, because people have a lot of objections, they have issues with trust, they don't trust your brand yet, and they need somebody to talk to. And that's why if you have the operational capacity to handle conversational SMS, or you hire an outsourced provider to do it, this is one of the biggest impact things you can do for your SMS marketing to make it perform higher. I would still keep doing traditional one-way SMS for these kind of things like updates or urgency announcements, but for this kind of content where you're trying to sell, for example, trying to get these people from the questionnaire intake, abandonment to actually buying, you need to have somebody to talk to them two-way, ask them questions, answer to their concerns, and eventually get them to leave a response. And then these responses are handled with your care team. Your care team actually takes care of the process and eventually makes them trust you more, so they eventually convert. And that's why conversational SMS usually performs better than one way in these parts of the funnel like questionnaire abandonment. Then there's pop-up forms and list growth, which is the next stage. This means the email and SMS sign-up forms, exit intent captures, and embedded forms on your website. And the list growth layer is something here that feeds everything above. So the more you have people coming to your list, the more people you have in your flows, the higher the traffic there, the more people you have on your list to send SMS and send campaigns to, and the bigger all of these segments get. And eventually this just compounds to more email and SMS revenue. So how do we do this? How are the pop-ups built? What do they even mean? Here's a good example from Half, even though it's not a telehealth brand. Here's a good example about health and wellness brand. How do they do these pop-ups? So usually the goal here is to have a micro commitment form that collects zero-party data at the first step of the pop-up. So for example, there's an incentive, you've got 15% off, and then to claim your discount, you need to share your number one health goal. So whether it's nutrition, mental well-being, in this above case, you could have 4 questions: hair loss, weight loss, ED, or low T. And then based on those 4 questions, you are then able to actually route these subscribers into a specific personalized nurturing flow or welcome flow based on the main category that they're interested in. And then you can improve your conversion rates meaningfully compared to just having a generic path. And your list grows faster, you get more people, you're able to segment them better. This compounds in multiple parts of that equation into more conversions and more sales. Now, step number 3 of our system is the ongoing collaboration. And this isn't a build and bounce engagement. We work in sprints, and each sprint comes with a specific strategic focus, specifically customized for your brand, with measurable outcomes and data-driven goals. And here's an example of sprint number 1. This is usually quite similar. Obviously depends on your stage as a brand, but this is the foundation. So we build the infrastructure, we build the core automations, we set up your deliverability and optimize it, and we start building your campaign calendar and executing it. And this one comes with specific measurable targets. For example, lifecycle revenue from single digits, bring that up to the 25 to 40% range, questionnaire abandonment reduced, or more importantly, like recovering more of the questionnaires abandoned, and then making sure that the deliverability gets to the top level, you're not landing in spam, your inbox placement is perfect, and so on. Once sprint number 1 is done, this is usually like 2 to 3 months in most cases, we move into the sprints 2, 3 and beyond. And each specific sprint is anchored to data. So for example, we might be focusing one sprint on improving your cross-sell take rates by X percentage points, or improving your 3-month retention, or let's say LTV by Y points. Every sprint moves a specific measurable number forward. And here's like how I would put it, is we're basically like retention scientists, always focusing on the highest leverage opportunities. So we can do any of these things, and we want to usually improve all of these things, but based on your brand and where you're at currently, we see that, okay, right now, for example, cross-sells are something that you're not leveraging at all. There would be the biggest bang for our buck if we started working on those right now. And then we go on and focus that sprint on that. And if we see that, your questionnaire abandonment rate is really high and you're not converting a lot of those people, then that's probably the big leverage point, because that's the highest revenue generating flow in your whole system. And then post-purchase, if your retention is bad, that's obviously the foundation of the whole business if you want to make a profitable business and be able to acquire profitably. So that's something that if that's not optimized, usually it's one of the most important things to focus in on these sprints. And over time, we're tracking the numbers. So for example, here for this specific brand, we implemented list growth tactics that I mentioned above. We implemented the welcome flow, we implemented the questionnaire abandonment flow, and then we tracked every single month from September 24th to April 25th and beyond even, what is the rate of subscription to conversion. So how many percentage of people who sign up to our list actually end up converting to paying patient within that first 30 days. And we got it from 7.65% here to 22%. So super meaningful trend here upwards. And this is what we are doing at our best. Now, why this system, this sprint model, beats a traditional retainer ongoing management model? Well, first of all, there's compounding context, because we already know your brand, we know your patients, we know your data. And if there's somebody new coming in, if they're just managing, they don't know your data, they need months and months of time to catch up. And we move fast. With every sprint, we have a specific target. We focus on that target for that sprint. And then for the next sprint, we carry over everything we already know about you, move on to the next steps. And there's not that much learning curve anymore. We protect your revenue. So for example, if a flow is not performing, we are fixing it. If a campaign doesn't convert, we are, killing it, and we're trying different angles. And we are not protecting our hours, we are protecting your EBITDA. So we don't have that kind of mandate for this is the number of hours we work, but we do what is needed to do to make sure that we reach our goals that we set for you. Every sprint also has a really specific clear purpose. It's not just sending emails. We don't do that. Again, like I said, you need to have a strategy behind your emails. And so each specific sprint solves a specific problem and moves a specific number. This is focused and this is accountable. So if we plan that we are taking your cross-sell take rates from here to here, that's what we focus on. That's the North Star metric. That's what we are putting our effort into, our strategy into, our tactics into to achieve that. And then we can actually make sure that we are laser focusing on something, getting something better, instead of trying to do everything without any actionable strategy, which usually ends up badly. Now, the numbers speak for themselves. So we have $60 million plus in attributable lifecycle revenue across our clients. On average, our ROI for the services is 36 to 41 ROI, or for the email marketing in general, with optimized setups, optimized brands approaching 100x ROI. So it's quite crazy. And then 2 to 3x improvement in 90-day retention versus brands running generic flows and not focusing on the retention. So these are really, really meaningful numbers for any telehealth brand thinking about growing more profitably, maybe being acquired at some point, and so on. These are the kind of levers that actually get a brand to that level. And like I said already, if you want to check out some of our case studies, you can find more of them here. And if you're ready to build your lifecycle engine, you can book a free retention marketing audit from the link below. We are mapping the exact gaps that I already mentioned that are costing you revenue, and then we show what are the gaps specifically for your brand and how do we fix these specifically for you, and if it's worth our time and your money to bring us on board to do that. So if you're interested, you can book a call from here. If not, hopefully this video was helpful in any case, and I'll see you in the next one.